I gotta suit up, 'cause you ain't gonna let up. Ain't never gonna let up, never gonna fall.
Now here's your host, Kevin Ward.
Jackie Stiles was Caitlin Clark 20 years ago. She burst onto the women's basketball scene, taking tiny Southwest Missouri State to unimaginable heights in the NCAA tournament. She was a three-time All-American first-round draft pick in the WNBA before injuries claimed her playing days and sent her into coaching, where she spent time here in Oklahoma on Sherry Cole's staff at the University of Oklahoma. She had to rely on the Lord in so many ways, beginning with the death of a younger sister when Jackie was in junior high. I started my conversation with Jackie Stiles by asking about growing up in a small town in Kansas.
Well, I grew up in a really small town of 600 people. I had 23 in my graduating class, but my dad was a basketball coach for the varsity boys, and I would just follow him to the gym when I was really young. I couldn't get enough of it, and I actually told my second grade teacher that I was going to play professional basketball one day, and that was before the WNBA even existed. But, you could go overseas as a female, athlete in the U.S., or, be in the Olympics. That was pretty much the highest thing you could attain, at that time. But I just knew basketball was what I was meant to do, at a very young age. And then I had my mom, working 2 and 3 jobs as a nurse, so I could have different opportunities, throughout the country to develop. But, being from a small town, you can't just play one sport. Everybody has to pretty much go out for all the sports to have enough people. And so I was a 4-sport athlete. I ended up doing cross country and tennis in the fall, basketball, and then track in the spring.
So any offers to play any of those other sports collegiately?
Yes, actually, track. And they, Missouri State tried to even have me do that. I had turned pro, but they wanted me to come back in my 5th year. It took me 5 years to graduate because I never took any summer school. I always played USA basketball in the summers, and so they tried to get me to run track, but I definitely turned it down. But probably my body, I'm only 5'8", I'm really small. My body's probably more meant for, like a tennis or even track. I was pretty, gifted there. I'm really small for, in terms of basketball world.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I turned pro, Nike had to get my shoes from a different division because they were, and I don't really wear that small a shoe, I didn't think, but in that world, I did. I was pretty small. But, I'm so thankful I did all the sports because now my obsession is pickleball, and that tennis background helped me pick that up. And that's, I light up when I compete. I just love it. I like to make my friends, if you talk to them, they're like, I have to make everything a competition. I find so much joy in competing, and that's kind of the one thing my body kind of still allows me to do.
Now, I grew up with 2 other brothers. It was just the 3 of us, and they were twins, and we actually were all 3 even born within the same calendar year, which, God bless my mother, right? And so yeah. I know that, and we'll talk about your 4th sister here in a minute, but you and then number 2 and number 3 sisters, how many years apart were y'all, and did you grow up playing sports with them, or was there too many years between you?
Yeah, so actually, I was the oldest of 5 at one point, but so I'm the oldest, and then I have a brother that's 4 years younger than me, who was next in line, and then another brother, Corey, after that, and then my sister, Roxanne, was actually 9 years younger, and she actually also played at Missouri State, and all 4 of us played college athletics, different sports and things, but we all were able to do that, which is pretty impressive from a small town. And then I had a baby sister that was the youngest, named Carly, and she passed away when she was 9 months old, so a very difficult thing, to go through. I was 12 at the time. I was the oldest, and I was kind of the one that was, responsible for taking care of her because, my parents were so busy. I mean, looking back, I don't know how they did it, with, 5 kids working, several jobs, so it was pretty chaotic in the Stiles household. But, yeah, we competed so hard, and actually really more so later, when we were all older, we would all come home for a holiday and we'd play like Stiles 2-on-2, and, you'd keep track of, best 2 out of 3, and then see who would win, the most games. And then we wouldn't eat Christmas dinner together because, we were also competitive. But I remember one point where my brother was obsessed with officiating. So, like, I would play PJ, the next one in line, one-on-one, and, Corey would be officiating, and, Roxanne would be there a lot of times rebounding. But a movie came out about my life a few years ago called The Jackie Stiles Story, and you can get it on, like, Amazon Prime and Apple TV and those different streaming services. But one of the things that cracks me up the most is, I used to make 1,000 shots a day, and I had to use a toss back. We didn't have the gun back then, and I would just, like, bribe my siblings to rebound for me because it would cut, it would take 4 hours with a toss back and 2 hours if I had a rebounder. And one of the clips, and I hadn't seen a lot of the clips, until the movie came out because there wasn't cell phones back then, so video wasn't near as prevalent. And my sister is rebounding for me, and she just looks so annoyed. It's like the last place that she wanted to be, so it was one of my favorite clips. It just caught how it was to a T, because who wants to stand there and rebound, 1,000, why I make 1,000 shots. So yeah. I'm very lucky to have an incredible family, and they're all, I can talk about that later, but they're all very successful, and they inspire me to be better every single day.
Now, you went to, it was called Southwest Missouri State at the time, now Missouri State, as you mentioned, and being obviously one of the best players in the state of Kansas, why did you not choose one of the Kansas schools and go to Missouri State?
Yeah, so my mom was Rock Chalk Jayhawks, big, huge KU. She, graduated from KU, grew up a huge KU fan. I can remember watching Danny Manning and the Miracles with my dad in '88. And but when it came to recruiting, so I was playing in my very first AU game, and this was when I was 12 years old in Emporia. My dad begs my way onto a team out of Kansas City. It about caused a divorce between my mom and dad because he's driving me literally 8 hours, 4 each way to do weekend practices. Well, it paid off because in my very first game, there was a coach there from Missouri State. It used to be called Southwest Missouri State. That's why people kind of get confused. Now it's had a name change to Missouri State. And she was there to watch the older girls play, just killing some time waiting. And she happened to be watching my game. And she was sitting close to my dad, leans over to my dad and says, "Who's that number 5?" And, my dad's like, "Well, that's my daughter." And so she waited around after the game. And I remember watching them. So this is the spring after they had made their first Final Four. I watched them on ESPN. And so she says, if you keep working, you could play Division I basketball. We would love to have you come to camp. And so I ended up going to camp 5 straight summers there. And they started writing me because I wasn't, I was in junior high. And if that would have not have happened, I would have never ended up, at Missouri State if they would have recruited me at the same time. But I got to know the program, and I knew they'd been to a Final Four. I knew Coach Burnett would push me to be the best I could be on and off the floor, and my parents could still travel and watch me play because, my Final Four were UConn, Oklahoma, Kansas State, and Missouri State, and so I just wanted my family when people thought it was nuts to turn down UConn, but I wanted my family to be a part of it, and I knew they could never afford to fly and watch me play if I, chose like a UConn. So ended up being the best decision of my life, even though when I signed, everybody was so disappointed. Because, I had a lot of pressure to stay in state with Kansas State, obviously UConn, and nobody, like even my mom wanted me to go to Oklahoma. She loves Coach Cole. I mean, loved her. So she wanted me to go there. My dad and my high school coach wanted me to go to UConn. And no one's first choice was Southwest Missouri State. A lot of people thought it was a Division II school. But I was able, I actually signed the letter of intent to play at UConn, and I was going to sleep on it, and it felt right. I was going to send it in. And that was advice from Pat Summitt. She recruited me. I turned them down early in the process. She said, my dad had called and said she's really struggling making this decision. She said, have her sign the letter of intent, have her sleep on it. If it feels right, have her send it in. And I signed the letter of intent to play at UConn. I knew in my heart it wasn't where I wanted to go, and I was able to have the courage to say, you know what, I want to go to Southwest Missouri State, now Missouri State, even though, it was like I had to sign quietly because everybody's so disappointed in my decision. But, man, I'm so glad I trusted my heart and my instincts because it was the best 4 years of my life doing something that people thought was virtually impossible, was to make a Final Four at a mid-major school.
Yeah. Well, third-team All-American, second team All-American, and then finally your senior year, first team All-American. And then you talked about all of what that team did in the NCAA tournament and how good you guys were. Did you get, just because people can be so cruel, did you get hate letters or phone calls from people once you didn't select one of the Kansas schools?
Well, it was really just a massive pressure before, I had flowers sent to the home from K-Staters, grads and alumni. I had ads taken out of the paper. People took out ads begging me to go to, Kansas State. Because actually I grew up a KU fan, but when I got to know the programs and the recruiting process, K-State became a better fit for me. Mm-hmm. So it was really the pressure beforehand that was so difficult. And then, right away, pretty much when I entered Missouri State, people became supportive, of my decision. But I remember I almost actually transferred my sophomore year, and UConn was ready to take me and everything. And I'm so glad I stuck it out, because it's always going to be hard. And that's what's so sad about the one-time transfer rule. Because I am so thankful I stuck out those hard times, because, gosh, we made a Final Four then, my senior year. And you know how hard that is. So it's been I'm dating myself. It's been 24 years since we made that Final Four, and there's not been a mid-major on the women's side make one since. Yeah. And so it was so special what we were able to do, and I was glad I stuck through those difficult times. I grew, and, it showed me what I was capable of, and, we were able to do something so very special by the end, of our 4 years. So
you talk about those difficult times and having to make those decisions. There was also going to be surgery after surgery once you became a professional basketball player. You may have did you undergo any surgeries in college, or did that all come after?
No, it all came when I could actually get paid to play basketball. That's when my body started to break down. So, yeah, and I realized looking back, I had made USA. I played 5 straight summers of USA basketball, and that's like playing a whole nother season, in the summers, in the off season of, college. And so I went year round, never took a break. And so my body really started to break down. In 2001, I made it through my rookie season relatively healthy, but then after that, I had to have wrist surgery, and then because I play with a stiff wrist, then I tore my rotator cuff and had a partially torn Achilles, so I was playing with all 3 of those things in my second season. So yeah, it was very difficult, because at that point, which please learn this lesson from me. My identity was wrapped up in what I did and who I was as a basketball player, mm-hmm. and it never could be that. It's always about the person you are, and it's not about what you do. We are human beings. It's about who you are as a person and not what you do. And I had to learn that the hard way, and was lost for a few years, after I couldn't play. But I'm grateful for it now, looking back, because that's when my faith really became stronger. And I put my trust in Jesus, and I just, I really developed that relationship. I grew up Catholic, and I didn't really have that personal relationship. And now, all the time, in my head, I'm talking, hey, Lord, what do you want me to do here? And I get up every single day. What is your will? How can I fulfill it? If I'm getting ready to speak to an organization or a podcast, I'm like, Lord, speak to me and through me. So it's just, now I have such a stronger relationship because of those difficult times and what the, Lord, did in me through those adversities, and, helped me come out of it, stronger and better for it.
I want to go back to your younger sister. So one of the podcasts I've done a couple years ago was with Mike Boynton when he was the men's coach at Oklahoma State. He lost a brother at a very early age. I think that he was about 5 or 6 when his mother went to give birth to what would have been his younger brother, and he never left the hospital. And I asked Mike if he ever thinks about his brother, and he went on and on to tell me about how he still thinks and still wonders what his younger brother would have been like at whatever age he was thinking of him at the time. And I wonder, Jackie, do you still have those kinds of thoughts about, when you lost your sister when she was only 9 months old, whenever her birthday rolls around, or are there occasions when you sit and think and wonder what she would have been like now?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And just that she was with me, through it all, because, so I'm the oldest and, she's 9 months and I was her caretaker. I remember the day that she stopped breathing, we had just won the championship. I was on a seventh grader on the eighth grade team, and we had just won the championship. And I had dressed her that day, put her in overalls, and the style was to have one, overall not connected, and I don't know if you remember that way back, but, had a physical the day before, and, just literally I see my grandpa's car just rush on by our bus. We were going to go eat and celebrate, and she had stopped breathing, and then just basically, never survived. And so, it was just such a difficult thing to go through. And I was like, she didn't get the chance, to see or be, what she could be. And so I was like, I am going to honor her with everything I accomplished. And I at that moment when I lost her, I was like, I'm going to dedicate everything that I ever accomplished to her. And, I always tell people you have to have a reason bigger than yourself to accomplish something truly special. And she was my driving force, when other people would be tired and they'd leave the gym, I would stay, because, she was just such a happy baby and just always a smile on her face. And, so I wanted to honor her by everything I accomplished. And that was really where my work ethic came from is, when I lost her. But yeah, she's always close to my heart, with everything that I'm doing. And this is definitely God's hand. So, when I became a freshman at Missouri State, my roommate, her name was Carly, and my roommate is Carly, and she is now like a sister to me, so spelled different, but, that's just not, coincidence in my opinion. So.
Yeah. Well, how awesome was that you got to talk to Carly every day?
Yes.
And I'm sure you talk to your younger sister, Carly, every day as well. You have accomplished so much in your life, and not just in the years that you played basketball, although, we're talking about All-American honors, first-round draft pick, WNBA Rookie of the Year. Do you think, because, when I'm 63, I obviously remember Jackie Stiles, coming up through the ranks and becoming what Caitlin Clark is now back in, the early 2000s. Do you sometimes think that maybe you were 20 years ahead of your time?
I get asked that a lot, because here she's, a millionaire, will be, set for life. But I always tell people I'm so happy because where I'm at now, I've never been so happy professionally. And if I would have made millions, 20 years ago, I don't know if I would have pushed myself to be where I'm at. And, I've just realized it's not money that fulfills me. It's having that purpose to get up and be excited about. And I've also learned, because, a lot of people struggle with, what's my purpose, and they might not know. But, I've found it's really not so much about what you do on a daily basis. It's how you do it. And you can really honor God by the way you do things and you show up every single day. And, even at times when I haven't been where I've wanted to be in my career, or maybe, in the perfect situation, I always try to give it my very best. And that always ends up leading you to, something that you do absolutely really love. And right now I own my own business. I took a leap of faith after I got out of college coaching, and I've always been obsessed with fitness. It's just been a huge part of my life. My college teammates used to joke. They said, one day you're going to be a fitness guru, and so now I have a private personal training gym in Springfield, and then I also do camps because it took so long during COVID to get my business open. I needed income, and so now I did over 40 camps this last summer, and it's great because I get to impact basketball how I want to. In college coaching, it was changing so much, and I was diagnosed with a rare cancer in 2018, and if I'm not aligned with my core values, my 5 core values quickly, I make a change. And I'm so happy I had the courage to, open my own business, having no experience, just getting out of college coaching and, now doing the camps because I wake up so excited to go do what I do. And, I just feel like for the first time, my gifts are really aligned to help, the most amount of people. I love what I do and, I get to help, a lot of people, be the very best they can be.
You mentioned earlier when you were being recruited and Sherry Cole was at the University of Oklahoma. I went to college with Sherry. We were actually classmates there at Oklahoma Christian. I was on my way out as she was coming in, but I knew her and Dane and all the basketball people because I did the play-by-play for the men's team on radio at that time. But and I've obviously have kept up with Sherry. She is one of the subjects of one of these podcasts as well. And so what you really liked about Sherry when you were being recruited by her, and then back in 2019, you become an assistant coach at the university under Sherry Cole. What was that time like?
Well, so first of all, so in recruiting, Coach Cole had just gotten the job at Oklahoma, so didn't even coach a game yet, and made it all the way. So starts recruiting me late, but was just her personality, her energy, her enthusiasm. You could just tell she was going to be great and she loved what she did, but it was just hard because they got in so late, in the recruiting process when she had took the job. But I was like, my mom is never going to forgive me because I did not choose Coach Sherry Cole in Oklahoma. And now finally I'm in good graces with my mom because I got the chance to work for her last couple years as a college coach at Oklahoma. And wow, I'm so grateful for that time because, a great leader takes you places that you couldn't go on your own. And I grew so much in those 2 years, and she's just phenomenal at the way she communicates. I've never seen a coach be able to communicate, at the level that she does, and, just her leadership, her communication. I learned so much. I grew so much in those 2 years, which now I've applied to my business. It's just really the same thing. It's like, you're building a team and you're trying to put people in places where, they can succeed and be their best self. And, I've took a lot that I've learned from Coach Cole and applied it to my personal training business.
You were even here in Tulsa in 2021 as an assistant there, and I'm surprised that our paths never crossed because I've been here in Tulsa as the program director of the Sports Animal Radio Network for almost 20 years. And so I'm bummed that we didn't get a chance to meet while you were here. Is coaching now something that is in the past that's not anything that you want to do again?
Yeah, so it's crazy, and there's not very many people that know this. And so Coach Cole retires, so now I'm in the process of selling my third home in 2.5 years, and I was like, okay, where am I going to end up? And I got the job. I got the opportunity to go be an assistant at Tulsa, and I just knew real quickly it just wasn't, what I just felt like I wasn't aligned. It wasn't what I was supposed to do. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever been through. I was only there a month. The players weren't even on campus. This was in the spring, summertime. And I literally, I'm like, oh gosh, I can't do the right thing and stay. In my heart, I just felt like I couldn't do it. And then I also felt like, I couldn't let my head coach down. I'd made a commitment. And I just knew in the end I had to tell her I couldn't fulfill it. I just knew it wasn't meant for me. And I'm telling you, all that could go wrong went wrong when I took that job. From, we'd always gotten cars in all my other coaching jobs. And I always said if I had to buy my own, I would buy it from Penninger Chevrolet in Republic, Missouri, because they always supported my career so much when I was in college and in the pros. And so I was in Norman at the time, I could not get a rental. It was like when the rental car shortage was happening.
Yep.
So I booked this Uber, and the Uber is going to take me, basically from Norman to Republic, Missouri, and booking it didn't really cost near what you would think it would. Well, the driver just drives me around, just leaves me on the side of the road and says, I can't take you. I have bad tires. And he's like, well, rebook an Uber. I'm like, well, by the time I rebook an Uber, I could have chartered a plane, cheaper to get to. So I rebooked this Uber, and I actually had somebody take a picture of me, just a random person with my big tubs, because I was going to go to, my new job after I got my car for a good month, And so I finally get this car, and I'm on my way, and so I'm in a hotel for the first week, at Tulsa, and I come out one day and, to go to work in the morning, and my car was stolen. So, yeah, I am just telling you, it's story after story. And so I was finally able to have that hard conversation with my head coach, one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I was listening to, listened to the pastor at the Church of Christ in Norman, and I was listening to his sermon the morning after. This was a Saturday. I told her I couldn't do it. Sunday, I'm listening to this pastor, do a sermon, and he said, sometimes God's no's are louder than his yeses. And I just had complete peace come over me. I knew what I did was right. And man, I am so thankful. I had the courage then to open my own business in Springfield, and, I'm running the camps. And so now I've never been as happy as I have been, professionally. And I just feel like I'm really aligned as well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's awesome. Well, let me ask you, Jackie, when you're talking to a group, and if it's an opportunity for you to talk about your faith to that group, what is kind of the message that you like to leave with them?
Well, it's just trusting in the Lord, and just like literally, like you have a conversation with your friend, is how I have conversations in my head, whether it's making a tough decision or if I'm struggling, like, Lord, please show me a sign. I'm just constantly relying on my faith, through everything, and it's just incredible the things I've seen. There's one time I really had a bad breakup, and I was just in a bad place too. Professionally, I hadn't gotten into college coaching. I was still kind of lost, and I was just like, God, please help me. I don't know what to do. I'm so struggling, and I just felt this presence. I felt the presence, and just all of a sudden, I just had this huge peace come over me. And then it was a week later, I got asked to take a college coaching job at LMU from somebody that had played at Missouri State, and I just knew that was what I needed to do. And then I do 1 year at LMU, and I'm in Los Angeles, California. So I'm from a town of 600 people. I'm now living in LA. I knew I couldn't stay after 1 year, but I knew college coaching was what I wanted to pursue. And so here I am. There's a job open at Missouri State, the head coaching job. I knew they wouldn't look at me. I'd only had 1 year of experience. But then I also was going through the process at Drury, and basically they had hired me. But they were going to make me hire, certain people, and it just didn't feel right in my heart, like with what didn't align with my values. I felt like at that time, and but I just was like, well, how can I turn this down? It's a head coaching job at a really great program, and everybody's like, well, you got to go to Missouri State, but there was not an opportunity. They hadn't hired anyone there yet, and so I'm like, Lord, please show me a sign. What do you want me to do? And I kid you not, this is a true story. So I'm in Los Angeles, California, in my apartment. The very next day, I open the door, and there is a Missouri State alumni magazine at my door. Not in my mailbox, not addressed to me, at my door. And I just right away called the athletic director at Drury. I said, thank you so much for, offering me this job. I just know in my heart it's not the right job for me. And it was a week later, Kelly Harper got hired, and I got to spend, 6 years at my alma mater, coaching at what I believe is the best place in America to coach at, college basketball. And, I have, story after story like that where, if, you're just connected in your faith, the Holy Spirit, you will know what to do. And it just provides you such peace because you're enough the way you are. You're a child of God. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. You are going to make mistakes. It's not about what you do. It's who you are, and you just get such peace from your relationship. And one of my favorite, I love Ephesians 6:7. Work with this enthusiasm as you were working for the Lord rather than for people. And I try to always have that verse close to me every single day I just want to have that level of enthusiasm, and I want to always give my very best and be present, as if I was working for the Lord.
That's awesome. Well, Jackie, how can people keep up with you? Or are you on social media? Where would they need to go?
Yeah, so I always like to send people, I'm not the greatest on social media, but you can go to JackieStiles.com, and if I can help anyone, listening to this podcast, please reach out to me. If you contact me through that, it'll go directly to my email, because I realized I was very selfishly focused the first half of my career. I got up and all I thought about was how can I be the best basketball player I can become, and now it's more about significance over, success. I want to help the most amount of people, and so if I can help anyone listening to this podcast, please reach out to me. I'd love to help you in any way I can.
Well, Jackie, God bless you, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me on.
My thanks to Jackie Stiles for joining me on Suit Up.
Gotta suit up, 'cause you ain't gonna let up.